everyone, this is Sandra of Nomad Stitches and Playful, and I am here with our next video in the Crochet Garment Shaping Series. Now, I know it's been a long time since I did my last video, so I apologize for that, but hopefully we can catch up and keep talking about how to create garments that fit well. On our first video, we talked about why these techniques are important and what relationship crochet and knitting have when it comes to creating garments that fit well. And then we discussed how to do shoulder shaping. We also talked about how to shape the neck and the shoulders using short rows to avoid choking when it comes to round yoke sweaters and raglan garments. And today we are going to zero in on raglan garments, what they are, what are some of their advantages and disadvantages, and also different types of raglan and which one is my favorite, basically. All right, so let's get started with raglan garments. What exactly is a raglan garment? Well, just like a round yoke sweater is based off a circle that starts at your neck and finishes at the end of the yoke at the bottom right here, then a raglan garment is based off a rectangle. We're going to be talking about raglans as if they're worked top down. However, you can work a raglan bottom up, you can work it sideways, you can work it however you want, as long as you consider those four corners as your raglan corners to shape the yoke. So if you are working top down, you would start at the neckline with a rectangle, so a slightly larger at the front and the back and shorter at the sleeves, and then you would have those raglan corners. So this one is an example of a very basic raglan, not exactly because there's stuff going on that is not a raglan garment, but it's the only one I have without sleeves, and it's really hot. But it also demonstrates very clearly those raglan corners. So you can see how I've increased at each corner here and also at the back right there. Okay, so that is the basis of a raglan. You have those four corners where you are increasing at a certain rate for whatever size for however long. Okay, so depending on the stitch pattern used, depending on the size, you're going to increase at a different rate. You might increase only on the sleeves, you might increase only at the front and the back. It all depends on the shape and the garment itself. But raglans have those four very distinct corners. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be right here at the underarm. I've seen some people do raglans where you have the increases happening in the middle, which is quite fun as well. But as a basic raglan, we have larger at the front and the back, shorter at the sleeves, and those four corners. Yeah? An advantage of a raglan garment is that it fits really well. It's a bit square and a bit boxy, but I really like the fit. I really like making them as well because it's quite easy to keep track of your rows, especially if you have a pattern like the ones I've been doing in the past when I work with raglans, which have a progress table, so you can just tick off your rows as you go, which makes it really easy, very seamless, very just fun to make, right? Nothing complicated about them. However, the biggest disadvantage when it comes to raglan garments is their lack of size inclusivity. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So, like I've talked about before, and I will talk about in the future, most designers base our grading of patterns on measurements given by the Craft Yarn Council standard. So these are standard measurements for each size from size 1 to size 9, which is extra small, to a 5 extra large approximately. I don't like using the words extra small, medium, large, because I feel like people zone in on what they are. I am a large, I am a medium, and they stop paying attention to the actual measurements of your body. And it doesn't matter if you're a large or a medium or an extra large. What matters is that you create something that fits. So I like to use numbers like 1 through 9 so that people actually pay attention to their body measurements and the way they want their garments to fit. So that's just a little side note, by the way. So based on sizes 1 through 9, size 1 is about 73.5 centimeters or 29 inches at the bust. And size 9 is about 155 centimeters or 61 inches at the bust. Okay, now the difference between these sizes, size 1 and 9, is about 81.5 centimeters or 31 and 3/4 inches in difference. That's 110% more between size 1 and size 9. Okay, 110%. That's a big difference, right? Bodies come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and that is a big difference between size 1 and size 9. That's a good thing. We should all be different. However, let's talk about neck circumference. Between size 1 and size 9, there is only between 12 and 20 centimeters, which is around 5 and 8 inches difference between size 1 and size 9 at the neck. Okay, that's not much. That's only about 25% growth or difference. So we talked about neck having 25% difference, but the body having 110% difference. So this means if you're going to use a standard raglan where you increase at the same rate for every single size, but the neckline doesn't start in very differently for each size. However, you need a very different circumference. What's going to happen is that for the smaller sizes, if you start in the same place as the bigger sizes or approximately the same place, you're going to increase evenly, and then you're going to reach the bust circumference, or where you should stop at your yoke, quite high, like up here, but above your underarm. And if you use that same exact rate, what's going to happen for the larger sizes is that you're going to finish the yoke way down here at your waist. So that's how long it's going to take to reach the right circumference for your yoke before you're able to separate for the body. That means very much a lack of size inclusivity, because that same rate of increasing will only fit a very small percentage of sizes and not everyone. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is to actually change the rate of increase for every single size. So size 1 will actually be increasing a little bit slower than size 9, because you want to reach that circumference, that wider circumference on size 9 faster than you would for a size 1. That way the yoke for all sizes will finish at the exact right spot. Okay, so if you're a designer and you're hearing this for the first time, just take a breather, because yes, it is not very fun to create a raglan garment that fits well, because all the sizes are different. You're going to need a different neckline, you're going to need a different bust circumference, and you're going to need a different yoke depth. So you need to make sure that the rate of increasing for each size changes so that a size 1 and a size 9 don't have a crazy different yoke depth, because nobody wants a yoke or a garment that has the underarm at the waist or an underarm that is choking you. All right. So this is the biggest problem with a raglan garment, but it's actually not a very difficult solution. Now, what happens when you write a pattern where every single size has a different rate of increase in your raglan corners? Well, it's a lot of writing, right? Which is why on my patterns I usually do progress tables like this one, where you can actually tick off your rows as you go, and you can see exactly how your increases are happening, when they are happening, if they're going to happen only at the front and only at the sleeves. You can play with that, but having a table is so much easier than having to write this information. All right, so I know that it sounds daunting, but it's really quite possible and doable, and it is something that we really should consider. So now that we've discussed this big problem with raglans, we can talk about the different types of raglans and how that size inclusivity can affect these different types of raglans. So the first one is the standard raglan, where you increase evenly throughout the yoke. Yes, the rating of increase will be different for every size, but it will be even from the start of the yoke to the end of the yoke. That means that if you're a size 1, for example, you might increase every third row. If you're a size 5, you might increase every second row. If you're a size 9, you might increase every row. Or you might increase every row first, then every 2 rows, and every row, then every 2 rows, and every row. But you will be doing that throughout the whole yoke. So this is my stripy pullover, and this is a standard raglan where the rate of increase is the same from the beginning of the yoke to the end of the yoke. This is a super fun pattern to make, and I love the stripes, and I love how it comes together so easily, and it fits really well on everyone I've seen making. So yeah, that is a standard raglan construction. Then you have something called a compound raglan, which is a raglan that's a little bit different, that includes aspects from other garments for a better fit. Now, a compound raglan is different because the rate of increase from the beginning of the yoke to the end of the yoke is actually different. So on a compound, you'll usually increase faster at the beginning, then a bit slower in the middle, and then faster at the end. And that gives you a much better fit when it comes to our bodies, because again, we are not geometrical figures, right? We have different shapes. So the compound raglan makes up for that. My Fior cardigan is my latest raglan garment, and I just absolutely love the way this one fits. And you can kind of see, well, I'm not sure if you can, but you can kind of see how this is very inclined. Then it goes a bit slower, and then it goes shoop, a bit faster at the end to add room for that underarm. So this is one of those compound raglans. My confetti DK pullover is also compound raglan. The first version of the confetti DK pullover did have a slight compound raglan, but I don't think I understood the nuances of braiding a compound raglan back then, so it wasn't as effective as the confetti raglan 2.0. So if you have made the confetti and you were dissatisfied, I am really sorry. Please download the new version or send me an email and I'll send it to you, because it is really so much better. It fits so nicely, and again, I'm not sure you can tell because of the linen stitch, but we do have a faster increase in the beginning, then slower, and then faster again. So this is all to say that yes, when we design something, we're not just trying to create something beautiful and something pretty, but a lot goes through my head at least to create something that also fits well. So hopefully understanding raglan garments can give you a better understanding of what you're actually making and of your body yourself. Now, what happens if you have a pattern you are so excited to make that you bought from a designer and it's such a beautiful stitch pattern, but it does not consider size inclusivity and every single size increases at the same time? Now, what's going to happen is that either your neckline will be too big or too small, or your yoke will be too deep or too shallow. So this is you having to think about it and decide how you're going to adapt it. Are you going to increase faster so that your yoke is slightly shorter? Or are you going to increase slower so that your yoke is slightly longer than what the pattern indicates? So think about it. Look at other people that have made that same design and how does it fit them? Do you feel like it would fit you well just like that? Then do it as the pattern says. If you feel like, oh, that was a size large and the underarms are down here, then maybe increase a bit faster. Okay, feel free to play with it. A few stitches won't make a huge difference, but a few, more than a few stitches or more than a few rows, especially when it comes to length, will make a very big difference. Another thing that is important to consider with raglan garments is shaping at the neckline. So we talked a little bit about short rows in the past, but I wanted to show you this specific example. And I love stripey because you can see so clearly here how the first stripe goes right below the neckline, but at the back, it goes much further. So the way the short rows work is that you pass through the raglan corner and then get to the neckline, then go back. Then you go back through the raglan corner and go a bit further. And you do that a few times, but always you want to pass through the raglan corner so that you are not missing out on any increases of the raglan shaping during those neck short rows. And yeah, I think that's all I had to share when it comes to raglan garments. Please feel free to leave your questions and comments below. I would love to hear what you think about this video. And if you want to learn more about how to modify garments or really cool techniques or simply be part of a cool community, please join us on Playful, playful.com. That's where I am and loads of other international designers from all over the world that are very creative and that would love to hang out with you. And I would too. So come and join us, playful.com, and let me know what you think below. See you next time. Bye-bye.